I'll never forget the feeling of waking up every morning in my car, the cold leather seat against my back, and the uncertainty of what the day would bring. It was a constant struggle, a never-ending cycle of survival. My name is Sarah, and I had been living in my car for what felt like an eternity. The city streets were my home, and the parking lots were my refuge. I had lost count of the number of days, weeks, months. It all blended together in a haze of desperation. Every day was a fight to find food, to find a place to wash my face, to find a safe spot to park and sleep. The city was a cruel mistress, promising hope and delivering only disappointment. I had lost my job, my apartment, and my sense of self-worth. I was just trying to make it through each day, one step at a time. The struggles of daily life without a stable home were overwhelming. I had to constantly worry about where I would sleep, what I would eat, and how I would keep myself safe. As I navigated the city streets, I encountered many people who seemed to have given up on me. They would walk by, avoiding eye contact, or sometimes even crossing the street to get away from me. It was as if I was invisible, a ghost haunting the sidewalks. But then, one day, everything changed. I was sitting in my car, parked in a quiet alleyway, when a stranger approached me. He was tall, with piercing blue eyes and a kind smile. He looked at me with a sense of compassion, of understanding that I hadn't seen in a long time. "Hey, are you okay?" he asked, his voice gentle and non-judgmental. I was taken aback by his concern, and for a moment I didn't know how to respond. No one had asked me if I was okay in a long time. No one had looked at me like I was worth something. I hesitated, unsure of how to open up to this stranger. But there was something about him that put me at ease, something that made me want to trust him. And so I took a deep breath and told him my story. I told him about losing my job, my apartment, and my sense of purpose. I told him about the struggles of living on the streets, about the fear and the uncertainty. As I spoke, I saw a look of genuine concern on his face. He listened attentively, nodding his head and making supportive noises. When I finished, he smiled and said, "I think I can help you. I have an idea that might change your life." His words sparked a glimmer of hope within me, a sense that maybe, just maybe, things could get better. And as I looked into his eyes, I felt a sense of wonder, a sense that this stranger might hold the key to a new life, one that I never thought possible. I'll never forget the day I met her, the stranger who changed my life forever. She had this warm smile and sparkling eyes that made me feel like I was the only person in the world. As we talked, I learned that her name was Sarah, and she had been helping people like me for years. But what I didn't know was what drove her to do it, what made her care so much about strangers like me. As we sat in her car, sipping coffee and talking, Sarah started to open up about her past. She told me about how she used to be a social worker, helping families in need, but felt like she wasn't making a difference. She felt like she was just patching up holes in a broken system, rather than really changing people's lives. So, she decided to take a different approach. She started volunteering at a local organization that helped the homeless, and that's where she found her true calling. The organization was called New Beginnings, and it was dedicated to providing people with the tools and resources they needed to get back on their feet. They had a community center where people could come and get a hot meal, take a shower, and even get help finding a job. Sarah took me to the community center, and as we walked in, I was amazed by the warmth and kindness of the people there. Everyone smiled and greeted us, and I felt like I was part of a community for the first time in months. But despite the welcoming atmosphere, I was hesitant to accept help. I had been living in my car for so long that I had grown accustomed to being alone, to relying only on myself. The thought of trusting strangers and relying on their charity made me feel uncomfortable, even ashamed. What if they judged me? What if they thought I was worthless? Sarah noticed my hesitation and put a gentle hand on my arm. "I know it's scary," she said, "but these people are here to help you. They're not here to judge you. They just want to give you a chance to start over." She introduced me to some of the staff, including a kind-hearted woman named Rachel, who would become my caseworker. Rachel explained that they would help me find a place to live, get a job, and even provide me with counseling to deal with the trauma I had experienced. As I listened to Rachel, I felt a glimmer of hope that I hadn't felt in a long time. Maybe, just maybe, I could start over. Maybe I could leave my past behind and create a new future for myself. But the fear of the unknown was still there, lingering in the back of my mind. What if I failed? What if I wasn't good enough? Sarah seemed to sense my doubts, and she gave me a reassuring smile. "You don't have to do this alone," she said. "We're here to support you every step of the way. You just have to take the first step and trust that we'll be there to catch you if you fall." I looked at her, and for a moment I felt like I could trust her, like I could trust the universe to have my back. And in that moment, I knew that I had a decision to make. Would I take a chance on this new life, or would I stay stuck in my old ways? The choice was mine and mine alone. I still remember the day I walked into the rehabilitation center like it was yesterday. The sun was shining bright, casting a warm glow over the entire building, and for a moment, it felt like a beacon of hope. I had never been to a place like this before, but something about it felt right. Maybe it was the smell of fresh coffee wafting through the air or the sound of gentle chatter in the background. But I felt a sense of calm wash over me as I stepped inside. As I enrolled in the rehabilitation program, I couldn't help but feel a mix of emotions. I was excited to start this new chapter of my life, but at the same time, I was terrified of the unknown. What would the program be like? Would I be able to stick to it? Would I finally be able to turn my life around? The counselor, a warm and kind-hearted woman with a gentle smile, greeted me and introduced herself. She explained the program in detail, answering all my questions and alleviating some of my concerns. We sat down in a cozy office, surrounded by posters and quotes about recovery and perseverance. She asked me about my goals and challenges, listening intently as I shared my story. For the first time in a long time, I felt like someone was truly listening to me, like my words mattered. She nodded along, taking notes and making supportive noises, and I felt a sense of trust building between us. As we talked, I realized that I wasn't alone in this journey. There were others out there who were struggling, just like me, and that thought gave me comfort. The counselor introduced me to some of the community members, and we exchanged stories and experiences. It was amazing to see how much we had in common, despite our different backgrounds and struggles. We laughed and cried together, forming bonds that I knew would last a lifetime. The concept of recovery was still foreign to me, but as I learned more about it, I began to understand its power. It wasn't just about overcoming my struggles. It was about growing as a person, learning to love myself, and finding a sense of purpose. The supportive community was a vital part of this journey, providing a safe space for me to share my feelings and receive guidance and encouragement. As I left the rehabilitation center that day, I felt a sense of hope that I hadn't felt in a long time. I knew that the road ahead would be challenging, but I was ready to take the first step. I was ready to face my demons, to learn from my mistakes, and to start building a new life. The key to this new life was mine, and I was determined to make the most of it. Little did I know, the challenges I would face in the early stages of my program would test my resolve and push me to my limits. I'll never forget the days when I felt like I was at war with myself. The rehabilitation program was supposed to be my safe haven, my ticket to a new life, but it wasn't easy. The struggles I faced were relentless, and there were times when I thought I just couldn't do it anymore. My addiction was a constant battle, a voice in my head that whispered sweet nothings, tempting me to give in and revert to my old ways. The therapy sessions were grueling, forcing me to confront the personal demons I had been running from for so long. I had to relive the memories I had tried to bury, and it was exhausting. The group meetings were supposed to be a source of support, but sometimes they felt like a reminder of my own failures. I would look around at my peers, wondering how they seemed to be doing so much better than me. Why couldn't I be strong like them? The conflicts we had were inevitable, I guess. We were all struggling, and sometimes that struggle boiled over into frustration and anger. There were moments when I doubted everything. I doubted myself, my abilities, and my decision to even try to change. I felt like I was just pretending to be someone I'm not, like I was just going through the motions. The voice of self-doubt was loud, and it was hard to silence it. I would lie awake at night, feeling like I was losing myself in the process of trying to find myself. I thought about giving up, about just walking away from the program and going back to my old life. It would be easier, wouldn't it? I wouldn't have to deal with the pain and the struggle anymore. But something inside me refused to let go. It was a spark, a small flame of perseverance that flickered to life whenever I felt like I was at my lowest. It reminded me of why I started this journey in the first place, of the life I wanted to build for myself. It reminded me of the key that had been given to me, the key to a new life, and I knew I couldn't give up now, not when I had come so far. I took a deep breath, letting the fire of perseverance burn away the doubts and the fears. I knew I still had a long way to go, but I was ready to face the challenges head-on. I was ready to fight for my new life, no matter what lay ahead. I'll never forget the day I sat in my counselor's office, feeling like I'd hit rock bottom. I had been living in my car for months, and the struggle to find a way out of that desperate situation seemed impossible. But as I looked at my counselor, I saw a glimmer of hope in her eyes, and it sparked something within me. We started talking, and for the first time I opened up about my past, about the mistakes I'd made, and the fears that had been holding me back. As we conversed, I began to see things differently. My counselor helped me understand that I wasn't alone, that many people had been in my shoes before and had come out the other side. She shared stories of resilience and triumph, and with each word, I felt a weight lifting off my shoulders. It was as if I'd been living in a fog, and suddenly the sun was shining through, illuminating a path I hadn't seen before. I remember walking out of her office, feeling a sense of clarity that I'd never experienced before. It was as if I'd been given a pair of glasses, and suddenly everything was in focus. I realized that I had a choice to make. I could continue down the same road, or I could take a leap of faith and commit to changing my life. In that moment, I knew what I had to do. I decided to fully commit to my recovery, to face my demons head-on, and to work towards building a better future for myself. As I walked through the park that afternoon, surrounded by the beauty of nature, I felt a sense of peace wash over me. I sat down on a bench, pulled out my journal, and started writing. The words flowed out of me like water as I poured my heart and soul onto the page. I wrote about my fears, my dreams, and my hopes. I wrote about the person I wanted to become and the life I wanted to live. And as I wrote, I felt a sense of purpose that I'd never felt before. In that moment, I knew that I was at a turning point. I could feel it in my bones, a sense of excitement and trepidation that came with knowing that my life was about to change in ways I couldn't even imagine. I was scared, but I was also determined. I was ready to take the first step towards a new life, one that was filled with promise and possibility. And as I closed my journal, I knew that I was ready to face whatever lay ahead, armed with a newfound sense of self-realization and commitment to my own recovery. Little did I know, this was just the beginning of my journey towards stability and independence, one that would be filled with ups and downs, but ultimately would lead me to a life I never thought possible. I still remember the day I decided to take control of my life, to start building a path towards independence. It was like a switch had been flipped, and suddenly I was filled with a renewed sense of purpose. I knew it wouldn't be easy, but I was determined to make a change. My job coach, Rachel, was a huge help in getting me started. She helped me enroll in job training and education programs that would give me the skills I needed to find a stable job. I spent my days learning about everything from resume building to interview skills, and my nights practicing and perfecting my craft. It was exhausting, but it was worth it. Around the same time, I also found temporary housing through a local nonprofit organization. It wasn't permanent, but it was a roof over my head, and that's all that mattered. I was finally able to take a breath, to feel like I had a sense of security. But I knew that I couldn't stay in temporary housing forever. I needed to start thinking about my long-term financial stability. That's where my financial advisor, Mike, came in. He helped me create a budget and taught me about financial planning. It was amazing how much of a difference it made, having someone to guide me through the process. For the first time in my life, I felt like I was taking care of myself. I was learning how to be self-sufficient, how to make smart decisions about my money. It was an incredible feeling, like a weight had been lifted off my shoulders. As I looked around my temporary housing, I knew that I still had a long way to go. But I also knew that I was on the right path. I was working towards a new life, one where I could stand on my own 2 feet. And that thought alone was enough to keep me going, to keep me pushing forward towards my goal. The journey was far from over, but I was ready for it. I was ready to face whatever challenges came my way, knowing that I had the tools and the support to overcome them. And as I lay in bed that night, I couldn't help but feel a sense of excitement, of anticipation. What would the future hold? Only time would tell, but one thing was for sure, I was ready to take it on, one step at a time. The thought of having a key to a new home, a place to call my own, was what kept me going. It was the culmination of all my hard work, the ultimate goal. And as I drifted off to sleep, I couldn't help but smile, knowing that it was within reach. I still remember the day I received the key to my new home like it was yesterday. It was as if the entire world had come to a standstill, and all that mattered was the small, metallic object being placed in my hand. I felt a rush of emotions, happiness, relief, and a sense of accomplishment all mixed together. It was the culmination of months of hard work and dedication, a reminder that my efforts had finally paid off. As I stood there, holding the key, I couldn't help but reflect on my journey. I thought about the days I spent living in my car, the struggles I faced, and the moments when I felt like giving up. But I also thought about the people who helped me along the way, the ones who believed in me when I didn't believe in myself. I realized that I had grown so much as a person, that I had discovered a strength and resilience within me that I never knew I had. With the key in hand, I began to prepare for my new life. I started packing up my belongings, saying goodbye to the car that had been my home for so long. It was a bittersweet moment, but I knew that I was ready to move on. I was excited to start this new chapter, to see what the future held, and to make the most of the opportunities that lay ahead. As I looked at the key, I knew that it was more than just a piece of metal. It was a symbol of my transition to a stable life, a reminder that I was capable of overcoming any obstacle. I felt a sense of pride and gratitude, knowing that I had been given a chance to start anew. And with that, I took a deep breath, ready to unlock the door to my new home, and to embark on the final steps towards fully embracing my new life. I still remember the day I unlocked the door to my new home, feeling like I was walking into a dream. It was a small, cozy apartment, but to me, it was a palace. I had been living in my car for what felt like an eternity, and the thought of having a place to call my own was almost too much to bear. As I stepped inside, I felt a sense of peace wash over me, like I had finally found a sense of belonging. The first few days were a blur of settling in and getting accustomed to my new surroundings. I spent hours exploring the neighborhood, getting to know the local shops and restaurants, and marveling at the little things that I had taken for granted before, like being able to take a hot shower whenever I wanted, or having a kitchen to cook meals in. It was amazing how much joy these simple pleasures brought me. As I continued to settle into my new home, I also started to focus on my personal and professional growth. I had always been passionate about helping others, and now that I had a stable place to live, I was able to pursue my dreams. I started volunteering at a local community center, where I met some incredible people who were dedicated to making a difference in the world. We worked together on various projects, from serving meals at a soup kitchen to organizing donations for a local food bank. One of the most rewarding experiences was when I met a young single mother who was struggling to make ends meet. She had been living in a shelter with her 2 kids and was desperate to find a way to get back on her feet. I remembered what it was like to be in her shoes, and I knew that I had to help. So I started mentoring her, sharing my own experiences and offering guidance and support whenever she needed it. It was amazing to see her blossom, to watch her gain confidence and start to build a better life for herself and her children. As I continued to work with the community, I realized that I had been given a rare gift, the chance to give back to the people who had helped me when I needed it most. I had been so focused on my own struggles, my own survival, that I had forgotten the importance of gratitude and kindness. But now, I was able to pay it forward to make a difference in the lives of others, and it felt incredible. I think back to the day that I received the key to my new home, and I am filled with a sense of awe and wonder. It was more than just a key. It was a symbol of hope, of possibility, of transformation. It reminded me that no matter how dark things may seem, there is always a way forward, always a chance to start anew. And as I look to the future, I know that I will continue to unlock new doors, to pursue new dreams, and to make a difference in the world one small step at a time.